Welcome to the Plug Effect Live, connecting budding entrepreneurs to tools, resources, and conversations to stay motivated, find balance, and facilitate growth. Are you plugged in? Let's educate, evolve, elevate.
Welcome back to another episode. I am Chanel Williams, the CEO, founder of Here Dallas. And today we are here to connect with Minister Dominique Alexander. He is the president of Next Generation Action Network. So thank you for coming in.
Thank you for having me.
Awesome. So just for the people who are not aware of your organization and who you are, just introduce yourself.
Y'all, I'm Minister Dominique Alexander, president and founder of the Next Generation Action Network. We founded the Next Generation Action Network in 2014. Over 9 course of years, we have become one of the largest social justice organizations in North Texas, addressing things from police brutality, education, environmental justice, you name it, any human rights violation, we're there.
That's an elevator pitch. So tell us, how did you get into this work? What inspired you?
Well, let me tell you, a lot of people know about our work in police brutality, right? And of course, when you're protesting the police, the cameras are always out there. Mm-hmm. But the reality is that I didn't actually start my activism with police brutality. In 2014, on March 7, 2014, one of my childhood friends named Delisa Kelly was beaten and strangled to death and left at a vacant house less than a mile from where she was last seen. Mm. And her grandmother called the police on that day. And the sergeant that was over the 911 call center kept her call in a pool of hangups. And so when the shift changed, he didn't let the incoming shift know that that call was there. So on Saturday, Sunday, and Monday, 911 or DPD didn't know anything about the call. When they didn't start looking for her until that Tuesday, which that following Friday, March 14, 2014, they found her deceased. And so due to the police lack of response and the fact that there were no provisions in regards to missing adults in the state of Texas, we created a bill for victims of imminent danger. So many people don't know that I'm actually the author of the Clear Alert law that just actually that people have been seeing in the last few years. It's probably the only picture that you'll see me and Governor Greg Abbott in the same room, but it's okay. But it actually exists. And so that's actually how I got my start in just doing that with Representative Tony Rose. That was a bill that we actually signed into law right before COVID in 2019.
So, I mean, wow. And you know, something that you said, it stuck out to me that like, sometimes we find our purpose through pain.
Yeah.
And so do you think that this work that you're doing is like your purpose?
Oh man, it was, because to be quite honest with you, I had just experienced a horrible death of my grandmother. My mom was 13 years old when she had me. Father was 15. Mm. So my grandmother was everything. And my grandmother had brain tumor and just had died November of 2013. And through the counseling and the trauma through her life, the only reason why I went to Delisa's house is because the counselor at the time was saying, do something that your grandmother would do, right? Mm-hmm. So I did like any church mother would do. I went to go buy $100 worth of Williams chicken, soda water, and I brought it to their house. You know what I mean? You know, everybody, when somebody died, you know, people hate when people bring them chicken, you know?
Right.
So I brought the chicken. And so I found out that she had passed. And I asked them, hey, can I host her candlelight at the high school we graduated? And it was almost 5,000 people that showed up. Mm-hmm. And then after that, we was just addressing the fact that, you know, this lack of response in law enforcement in regards to. And so there was an officer named Sergeant Willie Ford that pulled me in this office, and he said, man, this is the Texas Clearinghouse, and it's a gap between here. Don't tell us, it don't force us. And this is where it is. And shout out to Sergeant Willie Ford, because he really, you know, pushed us into that lane, because I didn't know nothing about it, right? And so after that, I tell people all the time, my rise in activism in 2014 really was me healing from yet my trauma, right? Mm-hmm. Me healing and finding yet sense of purpose. Mm-hmm. My grandmother used to always pray. And, you know, I always tell people, hey, I'm glad that prayers don't have expiration dates, right?
I know that's right.
And so, you know, after that March, And then, in some April, about June, July, that's the death of Eric Gardner, Mike Brown. So everybody saw themselves in outside in the protest line. And so I was known at that time because of dressing Delisa and on the media as Dominique Alexander with the Kelly Alert Foundation. And so I couldn't tie that into it. So I was like, okay, I'm out here protesting and I'm seeing God is doing some godly things. Life is life. And so that's when I said, okay, there's a disconnect between the next generation and generation now. And that's when I started the Next Generation Action Network.
How hard is it? Because there's different levels of activism, right? You have the younger generation versus older generation as far as what they feel they could do.
Right.
And there's so many different things happening in our world. So how do you navigate that space or creating a space where people, regardless of age, that they can get involved?
Oh man, I tell people all the time, I have to remind our elders that become problematic with our next generation. I have to remind them that the leaders that they honor, that they talk about, the Fannie Lou Hamers, the Dr. King, the Malcolm X, all of these people were not in their lifetime meant as elders, right? These were young organizers who did this work, and I remind them of that, right? And so a lot of times we have to also, I tell our other generation, we have to respect what has happened and embrace that, so that I always tell my elders, hey, listen, if you're not standing with me, that rock right there that you hit 20 years ago or the movement hit, you're the only one that's going to be able to give me the knowledge on how to avoid that, right? And so that's why we always have to work together, and so the reality is that we always tell people all the time, I always tell people, hey man, you ain't got to be a frontline protester to be a part of the movement.
Right.
I tell a story of a person by the name of Amelia Bunton Robinson. She was the person who sacrificed during the Selma demonstration. She gave up her office and her home to Dr. King during that demonstration. And her sacrifice has lived on because she was a wealthy woman, a wealthy Black woman in the 60s. She didn't have to ask anybody for nothing. And so the reality is I always tell people, after we leave a protest, I'm hungry. Somebody got to cook the biscuits. You know what I mean?
I know. You just finished advocating. Now you need to be fed.
There is always a part. I know a banker. I know an accountant. I know a person that's in marketing and PR. There are always ways for someone to help the movement, right? Whether you just want to come in and stand in capacity when we are there at City Hall to say, I stand with this agenda when we're addressing housing issues in the city of Dallas. Whatever it is, it's always a place. At the end of the day, if you are a working business class person and you don't have a subscription or a monthly thing where you're donating to that local reproductive justice org or that social justice org that is fighting every day on the front line, then yet you are feeding this colonialism that goes on in America.
That's a good point, because there are so many people who it's like almost as if they're intimidated in getting involved. So it's like they mention like, oh, I want to, be more active and I want to do this and I want to do that, but I don't know how to get started. I don't know where to go, what to do, how to end up even in communication to know what's existing, what's happening out there, like what organizations are doing this. So that's a good point. But what advice would you give them?
I would give them, first of all, a lot of times people always want to start something. And it'd be like, okay, listen, be quite honest with you, as a person who started, I don't want you to have to go through 9 years of trauma that I had to go through in building this organization. And it's a lot of work, right? And so the part is, there is enough apparatus, enough organizations that are in the atmosphere for you to be involved in. Go to that organization, volunteer. It might be clerical data work. It might be, you might be a web developer or a graphic designer. We need all of these different services. You might be a IT person, tech. We have to protect our infrastructure too. You know what I mean? And so the reality is sometimes people see the attacks on me and they'll be like, it discouraged them or some of the hits that I have to go through. But that ain't everybody's story. There's a lot of people, I tell people all the time, I'm able to keep on going because I got a lot of people behind me that support me, you know what I mean? And no matter what I go through or whatever and stuff like that, they are there to support in every different avenue. And I tell people all the time, man, there are local elected officials, judges that are a part of the movement that you don't even know. You get what I'm saying? So find your lane. Wherever your comfortable margin is, find it, feel it. Don't leave it void, because the movement needs it. And every day we are seeing rights being rolled back, fundamental rights. Yet I think this is the most important time, if not before, that we must protect the legacy of our ancestors.
Yeah.
And everything that they have sacrificed for.
Yeah. No, that's really big. And I think too, is sometimes people don't realize that like whatever you're good at is needed. So what advice would you give those out there on the importance of civic engagement and like voting and just really being involved in local?
Don't feed into the narratives that are created in order to destroy you from voting. I see a lot of people say, hey, vote, my vote don't matter, my dissent. That is totally a lie.
Right.
I mean, I tell people all the time, I tell them people this story. In 2015, we organized the kids to walk out of South Oak Cliff High School, right? And that brought about, that change brought about, and them kids walking out and us organizing them and doing that brought about over $400 million being created in a racial equity lens. In Dallas ISD created the Office of Racial Equity, right? And South Oak Cliff was told that they would get $13 million. They got a $62 million renovation, right? And so, and then after all of that, right, you're talking about Roosevelt, Carter, all of that. And at that time when soccer walked out, the kids walked out, it was only 800 kids there. It's 1,600, 4 academic distinctions later, 2 back-to-back football championship careers in Texas, right? So football.
I didn't realize how big it was a thing until I just saw when they won the championship. I just saw like it was everywhere. And I was like, okay.
For real. Ooh, so we talked about the clear alert.
Because I'm like, it's so many wow, impact.
We talked about, well, I could say it's been so many different things. But for us, I always said that it's going to take the next generation. Education is always the front line toward liberating our people. So I would say our impact in education, the work that we've done inside of Dallas ISD throughout the Metroplex in schools. I don't try to toot my own horn, but you know, from a person who was born and raised to see some of the level of impact, we talked about over $300 million or $500 million in a racial equity lens, that we can document that level of investment. Pinkston, Roosevelt, Sock, Carter, so many different schools. Hell, we're basically about to break ground on an $80 million John Lewis Social Justice Academy, the old OW Homes, $80 million. So it would be that impact. And secondly, the thing would be the clear alert, because that was my start, being able to get through that moment. And if anybody know, having to go through the legislature, I had to go through, that was literally 6 years of work.
Wow.
You know what I mean? Like they don't pass something down there just because it's a good thing.
Right.
You got to go through the process. Your bill might be killed. We was actually supposed to get it in the second legislature, but Texas had this bathroom bill, and our bill got killed or whatever, and so it didn't get passed, right? And so you have to like deal with that and be like, okay, I got to wait another year or two, right? And just staying faithful. And so, like I always tell people all the time, this work that we do, it's not an overnight thing.
Right.
We have to stay consistent. We have to stay, and that's the reason why people who are on the front lines are doing the work and doing the social justice work. My work ain't about being the most liked. It's about being the most respected. At the end of the day, when your child is dying or whatever's happening, you don't want me to be most liked. You want me to be most respected, because the most like ain't gonna get nothing done, right? You know what I mean? But the reality is that we have so much stuff going on that it's imperative that we all stay involved. But if I were to say one thing, it would be our impact in education.
How do you manage your mental health? Because I can tell you, like, especially during 2020, 2021, when all of the protests were happening here in Dallas and COVID, it was just so much. And I feel like there was a rise of awareness of mental health. And it was just a lot. It took a toll on a lot of people with just everything going on. How do you, being that this is the work, you are in it.
Yeah.
How do you, like, when do you find a break? How do you prioritize your mental health? Because you can't pour from an empty cup.
I take everything that I can. Just this past year, I actually went on sabbatical.
Okay.
For like 100-day sabbatical. And it's crazy that you say this because in April, like, I gave my staff 2 days and I was like, I'm done. I can't with it. I was like, it was nothing there. You hear me? I was joking with some people online. I said, listen, I know y'all messaging me. Y'all want me to do something. I'm sorry to say this, but get somebody else to do it. You know what I'm saying? Like,
get somebody else. No, that's good. That's boundaries. You have to set it sometimes.
And so I had to completely step back. I had to change everything from my eating, from every just different thing. Like, I did 9 years and I had reached that capacity this year.
Yeah.
I tell people all the time, plan it. Don't get to the point where I got, right? Because, boy, I was just so emotional. I ain't know what to do. You know what I mean? And so it's imperative that we balance our mental health, that we know how to juggle this thing.
Right.
So because I wasn't a person that woke up and said, I wanted to be this leader, right? I had to kind of like that 100 days reflected on those 9 years. You know what I mean? And being able to see the good, the bad, the things I made mistakes on and elevate from them. So it allowed me to evaluate it so that I could come back and say, okay, this is it. But then knowing how to, okay, listen, I was here knocking it out Monday through Thursday. I'm taking Friday. Don't worry about it. I won't be here. You won't see me. You know what I mean? So, and I'm good with this new saying or whatever, you know. Get somebody else to do it. You know what I'm saying? So, like, that's what I took from the sabbatical. I'm sorry.
Okay. Well, real quick, what would the theme song of your organization or you be if you had to come up with a theme song?
Oh, I don't know if I can share this. So, my theme song.
Let it be PG-13.
It's not. So
Okay. Then think of the second one. Second option.
But they'll think I'm lying, but it's Boosie. It's Boosie. You know what I mean? You know, it's Boosie, so I'm sorry, you know.
Whatever Boosie song. Okay.
So it's Lil Boosie or whatever.
Okay.
It's, you know, and so I won't say it because it's not a PG-13 title.
Okay.
But one day, you know, it's Lil Boosie, you know, set it off. You know what I mean? That's all I would say. Okay. And that's my theme song before I go to any protests. I need to be motivated. That's it.
Okay. What Deion Sanders said, play my theme music. That's you.
Lil Boosie. Okay. You hear me? Lil Boosie. Shout out to Lil Boosie.
Okay. So on a lighter note, we have this segment here. I like to ask random questions because I think that we are, a lot of times in just this work or in business or whatever, people define us by what we do in our job titles. So I like to get to know the person outside of that. So we have a segment called The Nosy Neighbor. So here are some questions, and I'm going to pick one. And let's see. Oh, okay. Biggie or Tupac?
Tupac.
Really?
Yes.
Okay, that was too easy. Let me get another one. Okay. Share a random fun fact about yourself that we don't know.
Random fun fact? I don't know. Well, I'm like, so first of all, like most people think I'm kind of like uptight and I give that and like
the work you do is serious.
Yeah, so. they kind of get real kind of, when they come up to me, they kind of like real tight and different things, but they realize when they get to talking to me, I actually got a good sense of humor, kind of funny.
You have to in this work, though.
So, and I'm like, you know, I'm always going to crack a joke to try to, you know, you got to, man. I tell people all the time, sometimes, like, it's helping me through the sanctity of dealing with all of this because, like, personally, I tell people this is like, I'm an introvert personally, but an extrovert in the work that I do. Like if you're at home,
definitely
I
can relate.
I would be sitting right there, be quiet. You wouldn't even notice.
Yeah.
Like, and so when I'm out and about trying to make people laugh, kind of keeping it going, because sometimes I have to put a distraction on what we going through in the midst. I think we was somewhere in in the Lion's Den, and it was all kind of craziness and politicians and politicians where we was at the other day. So it took, it takes some balance. In the atmosphere. You know? So that's a fun fact. I have a real humor side and like to have fun and enjoy and do it and keep on going.
I know that's right. I am the same way. So it was a pleasure. Thank you for taking the time to sit and talk to us. And is there anything that you want to tell our audience? How can they get connected with you and your organization?
Oh, man. So you can go on all social media platforms, Facebook, Twitter. Oh, it's called X. Instagram, TikTok, all that. You can go at Next Gen Action, on all platforms. Or for me personally, Nick Alex, NIQUE, on all social media platforms except TikTok. Some little girl won't give me my @ on TikTok. Shout out to her for real. Like I got it on every platform except that. But definitely y'all support us. Definitely shout out to you and the organization that you just did. Because it's definitely like I've subscribed to your platform.
Thank you.
Just to be in the know, you know what's going on. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
Like we need those connectors, right? You know what I mean? So shout out to you and y'all support her and keep on supporting her. And definitely you got the support of the Next Generation Action Network.
Thank you for tuning in with us. Make sure you like and subscribe to Connected Worldwide for more content like this. Stay tuned.